on the scientific background of invasion.
Okay. So, dear colleagues, it's my great pleasure to be here and take this lecture. I have taken similar lecture in the Hungarian seminar mentioned by Pali Kézdi, and probably the organizer was satisfied with my lecture because they asked me again for such lecture. I am a plant ecologist, a scientist. I do scientific research. But now I try to take a lecture that I hope will be interesting both for scientists and also for nature conservationist colleagues working in the practice. We scientists who do research in invasion biology has knowledge, different things, knowledge on invasiveness of species or biology of species. We have also knowledge on habitats, invasibility or let's say vulnerability of habitats, and also we have experience about the factors influencing the effectiveness of controls. I will talk about these three topics in my lecture. But first, I have to say some words about the problems in the communications between science and practice. First of all, we often use different terms in the two fields, or we use the same words but with different meaning, and it's clearly hinder the communications. The other possible problem is that we have different aims. Scientists would like to understand the problem, the processes in the nature, while nature conservationists need forecasting of processes, and they would like to locally manage the local problems, not understand the general processes in behind. Oops. Sorry. Sometimes it's quicker than I expected. In spite of these problems, I am sure that science could help your problem. And let's start about the definition of biological invasion, the scientific definition of invasion, because this term invasion, invasive species, is one of that we use in both parts, but often with different meaning. The scientific definition is neutral, so it contains only two specific characters: quick spread of non-native species. And effect on the native biota is not considered in this neutral definition. I am sure that everybody knows what means non-native, but I would like to show some slides about what means the quick spread. This nice colorful patchwork is the spread of Diabrotica virgifera, a small bug unintentionally introduced in northern Serbia and spread very quickly. Each color means increase of its area by 1 year. So it's really a quick spread. Some further examples. The quickest is a Yersinia pestis, but some birds, for example, starling, also spread very quickly in the USA. But even plants can spread 10 kilometers or more by a year. Okay, now let's see the other type of definition often used by nature conservationists. It is the IUCN definition. Definition for alien species very similar to the definition used by scientists, so it's not really different. But the definition of alien invasive species is rather different. I highlighted by red colors the main differences. The first one is that IUCN consider only natural and semi-natural ecosystems. So according to these definitions, weeds occurring only in man-made habitats in arable fields are not invasive. There are no invasive arable weeds. So according to this definition, Ambrosia artemisifolia is not invasive in Hungary because it's almost absent from natural or semi-natural ecosystems. The other difference is IUCN definition considers the effect on native biological diversity, while the definition widely used in the science do not. Why we scientists don't like to consider the effect on native biota? This effect change place to place, more often change than the other property of the species. So some areas, the same species will be invasive according to IUCN definition, other places not. And this effect is rather subjective. It's hard to measure. Sorry, the quality of this slide is not too high. In this paper, we suggested a solution for problems related to definitions. We recognize that it's impossible to create one definition that acceptable for everybody, acceptable for scientists and also for nature conservationists. And instead of the one global definition, we suggest a framework to create good definitions. We proposed 5 questions that should be answered in the definition of alien species, and 4 other questions should be answered in definition of invasive species. Answering to these questions guarantees that the definition will be operational, so it's fully defined, and everybody will understand what means the alien species and invasive species according to that definition. Scientists often talk about stages of invasion. The stage 0 is when the species living in its original area. Stage 1, it's carried on, the vector released in a new area, survive in the new area in one locality with low abundance, and then it may spread but remain in low abundance, or increase in abundance locally but without spreading. And the final stage, all really important invasive species are in this stage. Species is widespread and also abundant. My next topic is invasiveness of species. when we're studying this topic, we may have two possible questions. The first question is the scientific question. Which traits make possible survive and spread of species in a new area? It's related to understanding the process. So when we try to answer this question, we are searching for general trends and considers only traits functionally related to success of invasion. For example, taxonomic position is often a good predictor of invasive potential, but we cannot functionally connect taxonomic position and invasion success. So it's not a good trait when we would like to answer this question. The other question is how could we forecast the invasive species in the future? How can we say a potential new species, it will be invasive or not? In this case, only the predictive power is the selection criteria. So when we would like to answer this question, we can use the taxonomic position. And often we would like to do this forecasting locally, forecast species for Hungary or for Europe. We don't need global rules. Unfortunately, I have to say that science is not too successful to answer the first question. This figure comes from a great meta-analysis where alien and native species within the same genera compared, and a lot of supposed processes were tested. Black color means yes, the supposed process really influenced the invasive potential. Gray means no significant difference, and white means in the analysis the opposite was the results than expected. And only few cases the black color is dominant in the bars, and sometimes there are more counter examples than supporting examples. So I have to say we don't know general rules about invasiveness, and I am rather doubt that there are such general rules at all. It doesn't mean that forecasting is impossible. I think the forecasting is possible, and there are three different approaches that we can try. The first approach is the statistical modeling, very similar to the statistical models used by scientists for searching general rules, but the aim is different. And as I mentioned, not the aim, but the predictor variables are also different. In such modeling, the output is a probability, but often we convert this probability binary values, invasive or non-invasive. In such analysis, we don't focus on the significance value or p-values in the model, in each predictors. The global quality of the prediction is in the focus. Its reason is that small effect may be significant if the sample size is large enough, but it doesn't lead to a good prediction. The other two possible approaches is the scoring. Scoring system means experts create a system where some traits scored, and this score summed, and this summed value converted into prediction, binary prediction, invasive or non-invasive. It's partly subjective, but often works very well. I will show some examples. And finally, if only few species should be evaluated, experts can create a detailed evaluation. This method applied by EPO, the Plant Protection Organization of Europe and the Mediterranean region. I said that we concentrate on the quality of the prediction, but it's not a simple issue to measure quality, because there are a lot of possible measures. One of them is the sensitivity, number of really invasive species divided by the number of number of really invasive species predicted to be invasive and really invasive divided by number of predicted invasive. Specificity, it's the opposite, predicted to be non-invasive and really non-invasive divided by number of predicted non-invasive. And accuracy, where correct prediction divided by number of species considered. There is a problem, the big problem and big confusion related to quality of the prediction is that if the predicted case is rare, so we consider a lot of species and only small % is invasive, the relative number of false negatives may be high. Therefore, someone rather doubt that it is possible to predict invasion at all. But I think it's a misunderstanding of the problem, and I think the false negative is less problematic. It means false negative means we categorize a species as possibly invasive, while the species will not be invasive. I think it's not a big problem. Bigger problem is the false positive, when we cannot recognize invasive potential of a species, and we allow to introduce it, and later it become serious problematic invasive species. Let me show an example where these measures are calculated. In the analysis, native species, plant species native in Germany were studied, and some of them introduced to Argentina and become alien in Argentina, others not. You can say that both sensitivity, specificity, and accuracy is rather high in this analysis, but precision is rather low. Precision is low because it predicts more than 700 species will be alien from the German flora, will be alien in Argentina, but only 116 species are really alien. But I think it's not a real problem. Sometimes the statistical models are really successful. Such an example is the statistical model for pines in southern hemisphere. Pines are totally absent from the northern hemisphere, or they were totally absent before the foresters introduced. Lot of pine species introduced to countries in the southern hemisphere. And from seed mass, mean interval between large seed crops in years, and length of the juvenile period, it can be very well predict which species become invasive and which not. It's a simple formula. Species with negative scores will not be invasive, and positive scores will be invasive. A very nice scoring system, WRRA, developed by Australian colleagues. And you can say, okay, it's developed for Australia, we cannot use it. I will show you that with small modification we can. In this first slide, I show that it can be used in Hawaii. The scoring system, negative values means that species will not be invasive, will not be harmful for the nature. So it's, let's say, we accept to introduce these species. Positive values, high positive values, above 6 species probably will be harmful. We should reject it. And between 0 and 6, more analysis is needed. Often species, about species in this region, we have no enough knowledge. We cannot answer all questions in the questionnaire. This scoring system, based on a long questionnaire, ideally we could answer all questions, but it's allowed that answer only some questions and say, I don't know the answer to these questions. But if we say too often that we don't know the answer, the score will be in this region where we cannot accept nor reject the species. You can see that all no invaders are accepted, most of them rejected, some of them put in this gray zone without clear decision. The same system, it's slight modification, and a rather simple system, only about 5 questions developed in North America, were tried for trees in the Czech Republic, very similar country to Hungary. So I think these results of Czech colleagues can be applied in Hungary also. The first row is three species not escaped from cultivation, and white means accepted. No scoring system say no problem, we can introduce these species. Gray again means further evaluation is needed, and black means this species should not be introduced. You can say that these species that are not harmful, not escape from the cultivation, mainly accepted, or further evaluation is needed. The next row is analysis of species that sometimes occur in the nature. Sometimes they escape from the cultivation, but they don't have self-maintaining populations, so they are not really dangerous, not invasive. the general picture is the same. I have to say that the best scoring system is the Australian system with small modifications. The next row, unfortunately, the 4 rows would be too small in one slide. The next is species naturalized, so they often escape from the cultivation. They can survive for more than one generation, but they don't spread, don't cause any problem. Some of them rejected. Probably they are the invasive species of the future. About half of them accepted, and a lot of them would be evaluated in the future. We would need more information about them. And the last row is the invasive species. They not only escaped, but spontaneously spread, occur in nature, in natural habitats in great abundance. And both the original Australian system and also its modification, all of the species reject, suggest they should not have been introduced into Europe. Unfortunately, our parents or grandparents in the past has no such scoring system. Maybe if they had such system and they know this invasive property of that species, we have less problems. An important question in this scoring system is the climatic suitability of the habitat. You are aware, I am sure, that tropical species will not invasive in Central Europe because they cannot survive our winters. I just show a map that such climatic suitability will be analyzed, and we can produce numerical results about how our areas are suitable for a selected species. For example, in this map, how Europe is suitable for Carpobrotus edulis, a Mediterranean invasive species. Yes, Mediterranean part of Europe is suitable, and unfortunately, these species were introduced and become invasive in that area. Now, in our present climate in Central Europe is not suitable for this species. Not only the potential invasive potential of the species could be considered, but also the probability of introduction. It's very hard to calculate any number, but the trade routes and the mass of trades can be used as a proxy. For example, again, for Carpobrotus, it's native in southern Africa. And southern Africa has a strong connection, for example, Europe. And by this way, by tourists or by trade, it can be introduced unintentionally. Mediterranean part of South America also suitable for this species, but the probability of introduction is much less. So the risk that can be obtained by combining the suitability of the habitat and risk of introduction is much lower in Chile than in southern Europe. The climate is not constant. It's changing due to the global climate change. In this map, you can say the similarity of the present climate in the world to the present climate of Budapest. And this map, you can see the similarity of present climate of the world to the predicted climate in the future in Budapest. And you can say that there is differences between two patterns. So in the future, we can get species from other regions, while regions where we get invasive species in the past will be less important in the future due to the changing climate. The changing climate in Central Europe means that the temperature increasing and our climate will be drier. So we can expect that species that no invasive in the Mediterranean region in Europe will be dangerous in Central Europe. I show only two such species. The first one is Opuntia ficus indica. It has already found in Hungary in wild. The other one is Cortaderia. It's widely used in Hungary as a garden plant, as an ornamental plant. Recently, it's can survive the winter, but not everywhere, not in wild. But if our winters become warmer, it may be an important invasive species in the future. Okay, the next topic is the invasibility of the habitats. However, we have different aims. Both scientists and practitioners needs actual data on the level of invasion in different habitats or maps about this data. Practitioners need such data for planning actions. We researchers need such data for doing analysis that we do for understand the processes. We are lucky in Hungary because we can do a survey for vegetation in the whole country, and from this survey we have data, for example, about the area threatened by invasion in different habitat groups, and you can say that open sand grasslands and fruit plain forests are the most invaded habitats. On the other hand, rocky woodlands or halophytic habitats are rather resistant against the species. I think this very small value in water euhydrophyte habitats is an artifact. From this, from data of this survey, we can create such maps where color dots indicates the occurrence of the habitats. In this map, the habitat is the open sand steppes. The size of the dot indicates the area in that location, and color indicates the invaded area, proportion of the area invaded or threatened by invasion. You can say that almost everywhere in the country, this habitat is highly invaded. Okay. Also from this survey, we know that Asclepias syriaca and Robinia pseudacacia is the two most important species in the Such detailed maps are not available for whole Europe, but a predictive map is was created by Czech, Spanish, and British colleagues. They extrapolated data from UK to the Atlantic, Europe, and Scandinavia, from Catalonia to Southern Europe, and from Czech Republic for Central Europe. You can say that high mountains are rather resistant against invasion, but plains and highly populated areas are highly invaded. And finally, some ideas related to the control or management of the problem. You know very well that there are 3 levels of the control: prevention, early detection, or management of highly invaded areas. When we concentrate on the prevention, we need a list of invasive species. This is the black list, but I say that we need 2 other lists, gray and white lists. White list is the list of species that we are sure that these species will not be invasive, will not cause problems. The gray list means we don't know enough about this species. It may be invasive, maybe not. For intentional introduction, we can use 2 types of regulations. Blacklist regulation means that we hinder some introduction some species. So the blacklist say which species mustn't be introduced. Better is the whitelist regulation, when we allow to introduce some species and other species mustn't be introduced. And also, preventing unintentional introductions needs such lists, especially the blacklist. Early detection also need list, because we should know what should we detect. This figure shows that how much more effective and how cheaper is the early detection. These empty circles and squares show the successful eradication programs. Eradication programs, while black dots and squares ongoing projects. You can see that if the area was low in the starting of the project was rather cheap and successful, but if the area was high, the cost increased, not linearly, rather exponentially, and not finished, not successful yet. And my last slide about the eradication or management programs in highly invaded areas. You need tested technologies, and after control of the invasive species, the natural vegetation has to be restored, and all of this project would need special planning. And all of these points are good possibilities for collaboration between research and practice. Thank you for your attention, and thank you again for organizers for this possibility.
Thank you very much, Zoltán. We have time for 2 fast questions. Yeah? Okay.
Hi, thank you. I always have a problem with the retrospective analysis of scoring systems, because you already know what the invaders are. You've successfully predicted the invasion because you know they were already invasive, and you have therefore the data to fill out your sheet, your assessment program properly. My suggestion is that our grandfathers, had they had that tool and the data that was available to them at that time, would still perhaps have introduced things, because they don't know they've become invasive elsewhere. So it's just a slight challenge to the assumption that these tools can predict invasions when we know very little about the species.
Yes, you are right that we don't know which species will be invasive in the future. So I think it's this black color is very informative. This scoring system can recognize all species that we know as invasive, and I don't know some species which accepted and known as not only naturalized but non-invasive will be invasive in the future. But it is the best data that we have in hand.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, another question? If not, then thank you very much once again, Zoltán. And I'd like to ask Arno Monti to talk to us about the monitoring of invasive species.